Hey there, crafty friends. It's Diane, the Creative Inkster. Today is Wednesday, August 30th, and we're going to have some fun with sponge daubers. So listen, if you're out there, let me know you're here watching, and if you're catching the replay, well, leave me a little note. Love to know who's been along for the ride. Tonight, we are going to have our What's Up Wednesday, and as I mentioned, we're going to be playing with some sponge daubers. So you may have seen my video a couple of Fridays ago. Check on my page under videos, and I'll explain a lot more about not so much techniques, but just the way I store them and how you can get them, that kind of thing. And I really hope you really like this idea, because sponge daubers are something that we've had in the line for a long time, we've used, and then they get shelved. And when you have something that gets shelved, you need to bring it back out and play with it again. So here's a card that I made to show how you can use sponge daubers to make flowers. Really simple, really nothing too fancy, but I'm going to walk you through the steps on making this card. We'll actually make the design, and then I'll explain how I took it to the next level. So the greeting, happy birthday, comes from this stamp set, Artistically Inked, which has been in the line for a little while. It's this nice large happy birthday here. And it has dies for this set, but just to give you a sense of how big that happy birthday is. And I love this set for that. Thanks would work great on here, but I just thought this would be a fun happy birthday card. So a couple of trial runs that I had with this as I was playing with it. You know, getting the spacing right was kind of important to make sure that I had enough space around. So I did a bunch of different things this way, and then I decided I would do them in a line like that. So let's try to replicate that. First off, you're going to need the sponge daubers. So these are $7.50 for 5 of them, and I take them and I create little daubers for each color. Now, you know, you can build up to that. You can use one for yellows, one for reds, one for pinks, that kind of thing. So for this one, we're going to use Daffodil Delight and Gorgeous Grape. All right, so these are going to go together to make some quite pretty flowers. So I have 2. Do I have 2 here? I just have a thick piece. Okay, so I'm going to do the centers in Daffodil Delight. So I'm grabbing my regular ink pad and then my, not real red, Gorgeous Grape. So what I've done with my daubers, which fit perfectly on a finger, is I've just made labels to indicate which one works for which color. And like I said, you can use yellows or whatever. And we will just pop open this. Oh, look at that. I got a nice bit of Gorgeous Grape right down the center of my paper. That's totally okay. We'll just flip it over. So this piece, if you care, is 5 by 3 3/4. Alrighty, so let's start with Daffodil Delight. And over time, you will find they will go from being fairly smooth to a little bit more harried, and it might be time to change them up. Adds a little texture too. So for this one, I'm just going to go with somewhere around the middle, and I'm going to make a yellow daub. And that's going to be the center of my flower. I'm going to go over here, halfway between that one and the edge of the paper, and make another one. And then I'll go over here and do about the same. So it's probably not going to be perfectly even, but that's okay. I can always trim down my paper afterwards. So there's our centers done. Pretty simple. You may have also seen a card I did a while back that has just polka dots all over it. That's another way to do this. But I thought it was fun to see how we can make flowers. So I'm going to need 6 petals. And I may find that I want to go over them more than once to get a little more depth of color. So we will start here and see that's not dark enough. There we go. And here. And we're just going to go. And in nature, like when you have flowers, usually they don't turn out perfectly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, so actually I'm going to get 5 petals. So maybe we're going to do 5 petal flowers here. So we'll add a little bit more. That one was a little bit goofy. That's okay. But you get the idea. So you can go around. Here we'll make a 6 petal card, petal flower. so you can see what that looks like too. 4, going over it a second time. It's pretty easy to go over it, and it looks a bit fuzzy, and that's okay. That just adds to the charm of it. There we go. So that one turned out quite even and symmetrical. So you just need to practice this one. This is one that you need to take a little bit of time and practice with. And try different color combinations that you like. And just work around. Then I'll explain a little bit more about what I did to finish off the card. 4, 5, and 6. There we go. This one's a little bit more. You could cut these out. You could just take a little part of it out if you liked. And so what I did once I was done making my pretty flowers was I took the piece of paper and ran it through an embossing folder, and that gave the texture behind the flowers. This is the pack of 3 basics embossing folders. And so that sort of gives a bit of a hashtag kind of look, and then added some pearls to the center and a greeting and matted it up, and boom, cute little card. So that's one thing you can do with your, one thing you can do with your daubers. Another thing I saw a video on was removing a little bit of the excess ink. So when you have a stamp like this one here, which is from Enjoy the Rhythm, sometimes the ink, the words are quite thick as compared to, or the font is thick, even within the same stamp set. So You Rock My World, the U and the My are thinner font. Hi, Lise. And the others are a lot darker. So actually, maybe we'll do that one. I was going to sort of show you what I mean by removing a little bit of the ink this way. I saw somebody do this, and I thought it was a brilliant idea. So let's grab that stamp, and we'll see if we can replicate the problem so I can show you the solution. Right, so I'm using Real Red, and sometimes it's about the ink pad being fairly juicy. And so these kinds of stamps have a little bit more difficulty, especially if your ink has pooled a little in the center. So on a video, I've shown you how to use an old credit card to gently move the ink away from the center or to the edges. So let's add our ink on here, and let's take a peek what happens. So we put it on there, and that one's not too bad because on this one it turned out fairly nicely, but over here with the one that I had done ahead of time, some of the words, the letters like the E and the A and the O sometimes can get a little too juicy. So let's try that particular stamp, and because I was finding that was the one that created the issue. And I'll show you what we do. So grab a little block. Too small. We need a bigger one. There we go. Enjoy the rhythm of each day. So onto our paper we're going to go. And there we go. Okay, so that's good. That's been able to sort of replicate what I was going for. So on the E here and the lowercase e here, it's smudged a little bit. So what we can do, I mean, other than super light tapping, which isn't always the solution because that didn't help there at all, we'll flip this over and we just grab our Real Red Dauber. Keeps cutting out on me going to check. Oh, okay. So I ink this up and then take the Real Red Dauber and just lightly tap over top. And we will remove a little bit of that excess ink. And now when we press down, it's a bit of a crisper, clearer image. So I thought that was a brilliant solution to this problem that I saw another demonstrator do, and it looked like fun. All right. The next thing I want to show you is sponging through some stencils. So let's grab some stencils that we have with Stampin' Up and a piece of white paper. So we have this set right now from the annual catalog. There's actually 2 current sets. Artistic Mixed Decorative Masks. I'll just open them up and show you what they look like. Okay, there we go. So we have this one here, which I haven't actually used. So I guess you would make a background that you could stamp into. I like this one. And these ones too. You could actually even line these 2 up and do 2 different colors. And if you did this one with the larger pieces first and then this one over top, you would get some really neat lines. But I'm going to show you a kind of a simpler one with this. And then there's these, I don't know what this shape is, but I've seen it before. And so it's just another mask idea. So what we're going to do is take some tape. Oh, you're back. Thank you. And we're just going to tape this down just to hold it in place. It's going to tape the corner. And then what I would do, because I'm taping the corners, is I would make my piece a little bit larger than I need so that I can trim it down. So now I'm just going to grab something to poke with, because I noticed on my template that there's a couple of pieces that didn't punch out. So I'm just going to take those out. They're just part of the template that didn't pop out. There we go. I'll get that out. Oop, doesn't want to come out. I don't have my pokey tool. Do I right here? I think I used it last night in my class. So maybe we can avoid and just stay away from this spot. But right now I'm just trying to use a pencil to get through there. Okay, we will just stay away from that part. So then what we're going to do once we have our paper taped down with some washi tape is we will take the stencil and line it up where we want it to be, and similarly tape it into place. And this will hold it down. Now you can use washi tape because, like me, you probably have gazillions of it, rolls and rolls and rolls. Or you can use my favorite Post-it notes. That works too. And whatever works for you. Okay, I'll put a little bit over here to hold that in place. All right, I think we're in good place. And we're going to grab, what should we do? Let's do Moody Mauve or Moody Mauve. I call it Mauve. And I have a new sponge dauber I haven't even used yet. So it probably needs a little wee bit of priming. There we go. Okay, so then we're going to see just how dark we want this to go. So there's a couple of different application techniques. You can go across it like this to fill in. So it's just basically like doing with a template. Or you can do this. And you just get a little bit different look. You get a little bit maybe messier on your template. But this is just water-based ink. So you can just take this to the sink and put your template, which is all plastic, right under the running water, and Bob's your uncle. You are all set to go. So I'm curious to see with the 2 different methods if it's darker in one spot than another. I think the daubing part might be a little healthier for your sponge dauber. I'm a little rough with mine, but then again, I don't care about replacing them if I need to. So I may not want to do the whole layer of a card front. I may just want to do part. So we'll just go across like that. And we'll take the template off and see how that turned out. I know, right? If we don't use them, they sit in our craft room, they get pushed aside, we forget all about them. We're going to take our tape off carefully so as to not get our fingers covered in ink. And voila, that is what it looks like underneath on our layer. And it does not seem to matter whether I went across or just daubed in, or whether I went right across in a sweeping motion. So yes, I did start another row, but you get the idea of how that can add from there. So we're going to move on to something very similar to this, because maybe you don't have templates, but you can use some die cuts as well. So here is my leftover piece from Monday night, from this Monday when I did the slimline card, and I had die cut this image out, and I have the piece left over, the negative piece, if you will, and I can make my own die cuts, my own stencils. Now, because it has the backing on the back for the adhesive sheet, I think that's going to help give it a little bit more, hi Glenda, a little bit more weight, or you could cut it out in the backing cardstock, not the gray stuff, but the white backing from our DSP packs, and that'll give you some stencils you can work with. But we will tape this down, and I think once again I'll want to tape down the paper as well onto my scratch paper. There we go. We want to keep our nice pristine white piece here for a little bit. All right, let's get this tape going here. Stuff's pretty strong. And we'll put the paper down, or the cardstock down first. And again, I probably would make it a little bit bigger than I needed so that I can just cut around that bit of tape in case I go a little bit hog wild. So we're going to put this piece in the center. Oh yeah, did you see it shift? I saw it shift. Now we're going to have to be mindful of this piece that's sticking up here, because it is going to want to get in our way. So we're going to daub around that. All right, so we could put some temporary adhesive, but we're just going to be careful when we go through there. So let's go back with Gorgeous Grape. So we'll grab that sponge dauber, and we will go right through our die cut. So don't throw your die cut pieces out, your negative pieces. It may or may not work depending on how much cuts out. But hey, you know, there's ways to use this, and I'm wondering too with those wanted to say dies if perhaps the words would work nicely too. All right, so now I got to hold this little piece down here, and in fact, if I use my Take Your Pick tool is elsewhere on my craft table. I can't quite reach it, so I'm just going to use the end of this paintbrush to kind of hold that in there and not get too much gorgeous grape on my fingers. There we go. So you can see where this is going. And then we will peel this off gently. And if you find your masking tape is too sticky, just run it on your hand a little bit, or your jeans, and that will make it a little less tacky and help it work better that way. Oop, see, because that was pretty strong stuff I was working with. Stuff's been in my craft room for a while too. That's okay, we're just doing a sample here. Alrighty, and so when we remove that template, we have a beautiful backdrop that we could use on a card. So wouldn't that work well? I think that'd be really pretty. And if you did it and then you move this over and did it perhaps in another color, like I'm thinking something like Pool Party, which isn't handy, or I'd grab it, something like that. So you can take the template and do it over and over again. So hang on to these, because you never know when they'll come in handy for a template. Then we're going to go add depth to some die cuts and punch shapes with matching ink. So we have this one from Meadow Dies as well in Wild Wheat, and it's lovely in the cardstock, but I want to add a little bit more texture. So that gives me a chance to show you how I am repurposing some of my sponge daubers as well. So yeah, I know they're not very expensive, but you know, some of them I'm not going to use. I can't remember what this color was. Certainly not like Lost Lagoon, although that's the color it looks like. But I washed it and let all the ink run out, and it's stained on the end, but that's fine. So now I can add Wild Wheat and see it hasn't damaged it in any way. So here's my die cut, and I can add some sponge daubers to this, and I'm Try not to get too much ink on my fingers. There we go. And then what a difference. It just has so much more texture. Looks so much nicer. Let's pull this up against a white background. How nice is that? Something else you can do when you have your card layers, and I didn't do it on this fun flower card, but you can take your sponge dauber and with your paper in hand, you can add a very thin layer to the edge so that it pops up a little bit. Or, oh, it's Moody Mauve as I grabbed it. I didn't grab the one I wanted, but that's okay. Or you can put it on your table and bring it in and go around. And by going around this way, you get a sharper image on the edges and then a softer image coming in. So that's a way to sponge around, which I think is probably the original use for sponge daubers. And then we can even add wild wheat or whatever to a white die cut and add it some color too. So if all you have is white cardstock and you have the ink, but you're out of the cardstock that matches, have no fear, we got that covered. So where did the wild wheat one go? Here it is. So hopefully we've got some ink still left on there. We might need to actually grab some more. And on here, on basic white or very vanilla, you can add some speckling and make any color to coordinate your die cuts or your punches with your project. So there we go. What was once basic white is no more. So here we go. A couple of more ideas with sponge daubers. Fun to get them out, fun to have a little bit of a play here and there. Let's have a quick recap, and I will thank you for watching. So first step was making flowers with my cute little dauber flowers here. And it takes a little practice, but you can get it done. And then we went on to removing a little bit of excess ink. So if your stamp comes out and it's filling in the little holes in some of the letters, try taking it off with a sponge dauber that's in the coordinating color, or keep one that you use for that kind of thing. Here we took a die cut and sponged through, or we can do some sponging either thick or thin around the edges. Oh, here's our stencil. So if you have actual stencils, you can put some ink through with those patterns. And then two other bits of sponging on top of an already a colored cardstock, like wild wheat on wild wheat, or the ink onto basic white. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks, Marilyn. I appreciate your comments very much. I hope this gives you something to play with, and you have a great day. I will see you next week. Take care. Bye for now.